Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. For today's guests, for all the audience, the listeners and viewers out there who are public speakers, give a presentation. I have Oreet Kaufman from Chicago, and she's a freelance PowerPoint designer, and she usually talks about the concept of word dieting and some of the most common slide sins to avoid. So I'm really happy to have her on to share her expertise. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And briefly introduce yourself and how you help clients.
Sure. So I'm Oreet Kaufman, and I left corporate after about 20 years. I was always in training and development and in sales training most recently. And throughout all of my career, really, I've delved and used PowerPoint one way or another. And I'm sure everybody listening has as well. And I think when PowerPoint was born back in the 90s, it was new and everybody created the same type of presentations. And unfortunately, sometimes those presentations today still look like they're from the 90s. So you've got slides that are overwhelming, that have too much content. You've got just copy and paste pictures slapped on there. There's no flow, there's no consistency, there's no visual attraction to the slides. So I help clients with that communication piece of their messaging. Good presentation is a marketing tool, it's a communication tool. So I help clients polish their slides to really polish their reputation and their image and really give them the confidence they need to go out there in front of that audience.
Yeah. And with the when I love to talk to influencers and especially presentation coaches, speech coaches,
Mhm.
what client avatar are you that usually comes to you? What are they trying to achieve or what are they frustrated with to come and work with you?
Yeah, a lot of frustration I see is that sometimes it's we've got somebody on our team that can do this. We just need her to do other things. So it's just a resource issue. But a lot of times it's I know it can be better, but I just don't know how. I work with vice presidents of marketing, all the marketing departments and communication departments. And sometimes this specific niche of PowerPoint design isn't in their area of expertise. So that's where I come in. They will often come to me to say, I know it can be better. I just don't know how. So please help me. And that's sometimes where I see those presentations from the 90s and my head spins, but that's what I do well.
Yeah, I give quite a few speeches throughout the year, and then towards it all, I wish there was a better way to do the slide, automate and make it effective, how to prepare. It takes quite a chunk of time. So then one thing, so what are some common presentation mistakes and how do you fix them?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think we've all seen the overcrowded slides. So I think in so many areas of life, we say less is more. And it really is true in presentation design as well. So too much makeup. No, too much, whatever it might be, too much food. Less is more. So people don't like to have white space on their slides, but really that white space helps your slides breathe. You have to think about that your audience only looks at your slide for 3 to 5 seconds. So if you think about how fast that oh, we're done 3 to 5 seconds. What do you want your audience to take away from your slide? And so it's about keeping one message on a slide. Sometimes you're going to have a lot of bullets, whatever the nature of the presentation is or the industry. But for the most part, you really want to keep one message per slide so that your audience can focus on that. You don't want to crowd it with one slide and one point and visuals and charts and graphs. I think charts and graphs are great, but there's a right time and place for them and how to use them effectively. So we'll see data that's all over the place. And I say to clients, if I were to look at this and I have 3 to 5 seconds, what do you want me to take away from it? What do you want me to remember? So it's also thinking about the outcome at the end. So I say to clients, what do you want to achieve with this deck? Are you trying to change a behavior? Are you trying to teach something? Do you want them to call you afterwards? What do you want? And then I build the deck backwards from there to say, okay, my experience in instructional design has taught me to build a process, to tell that story, to start from the beginning and that arc, and then at the end, so that we meet those outcomes at the end. So a lot of times, slides will just be random collection of ideas. So I help clients put that random collection of ideas into a storyline format, and then with the visuals and the decluttering of the content, really make it a comprehensive communication tool.
Interesting. I'm gonna ask you because I worked with a lot of presentation and speech coaches as well. And one thing, because I speak a lot to physician audiences, and physician audiences, they want numbers, they want facts, they want data. And then one of the coaches that I was working with, he was telling me stories. So how do you narrate if you want to make it a very informational packed session? A lot of them, they don't care about stories. They want to see the numbers. So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, so I think there's two things. You can build those numbers into the stories. So I think the
Mhm.
last 20, 30 years, there's been such a focus on storytelling because people are zoning out with just numbers being thrown at them. So you want to engage your audience, and you can definitely build those numbers into the story. It does take practice. And I would say if you have so much data in your example, give it as a handout. So in that presentation, just speak to the core data. One thing I also say is don't make your audiences do math. So, especially if we're talking numbers with that type of audience. So, if you're going to say something like two-thirds of physicians recommend XYZ, don't make me do math. Just tell me 66% and put that number on the slide. So I can walk away saying, okay, 66%. And that's how most people process information with a single number and not having to do that math. So as much as possible, reduce those numbers, pull out the core numbers. And sometimes you do need to do a comparison. Sometimes it is a chart, and sometimes you can't get away from it. And that's fine, but there's also a way to design it so it's not so overwhelming. But if you're talking about something that feels like a handout, that in a speaking event, no one's going to sit through and start combing through all those numbers, make it a handout and make yourself available afterwards.
Huh, interesting. A follow-up question I have for you is now, how do your visual tactics and strategies and communication tools differ in a Zoom-based versus a in-person format?
So I think it's not that much different. I think everybody wants to be engaged. Everybody has the 3 to 5 seconds. And nowadays, whether you're in a Zoom or whether you're in the audience, you're on your phone and multitasking. So I think that 3 to 5 seconds is the same. I think your visuals are the same. I think you might to make it a little bit more engaging if it's on Zoom, because as much as we're all on our devices, on a Zoom, you're doing six other things as well. So, you might look at to see, is there a slide you can cut back on and just put it in speaker notes from a webinar perspective? But in my experience, I haven't seen that they're that drastically different.
Interesting. And talk to us about word dieting, cutting the clutter to make your message stick.
Yeah, so this is a phrase I invented is that it started when I was in sales training recently. And then with sales training, I always design my training to think about worst case scenario, if that seller's in the parking lot, and I used to call it parking lot training, what's the minimum amount of information they need to have that conversation with the customer? So, in order to get to that minimum amount of information to be as effective as possible, I thought of word dieting, which is essentially cutting out the clutter. So, I take my teacher's red pen and I cut, and I really try to find the redundancies and any repetition in what you're saying. Because again, 3 to 5 seconds, don't waste people's time. Don't start the same bullet with every word. That word can go on top or it can be part of speaker notes. And so I ruthlessly just start cutting. And it takes practice, and it takes practice to think about it and step back and say, if I remove two or three words, if I take out that phrase between the commas, does it actually change anything? No. And now, even though when you're actually writing your paragraph, you're still 3 lines, but it's three less, like it's less information on each line, it's less big words. Come from corporate, and I understand how the executives process information and that least amount of information as possible. So, how do you cut through that jargon, speak directly and professionally as concisely as possible?
Yeah. What about when you basically work on the communication and kind of the design elements? How do visual elements influence audience perception?
So people respond to visuals, and that's part of the storytelling, right? If you can have great slides with no clutter and be as concise as possible, but that visuals makes a connection, right? You as a speaker makes a connection, and the right visuals make a connection. And what people are going to walk away with was your slide overloaded? And also, wow, she really used this image that portrayed world hunger, that portrayed people suffering, whatever it might be. So you're building that emotional connection with the audience. And so that's why the right visual aids really help you stick that landing.
Uh-huh. And how about narrative techniques for compelling decks, the storytelling slide?
Yeah, so I think when I think about storytelling in terms of like an arc, right? What was the situation and what happened and how do you get to your desired outcomes? What challenges did you face along the way? What were your successful case studies or outcomes or examples? And then how does that lead your audience to the action you want them to do at the end, where you too can be just like the person we've been speaking about in our case studies. So like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of speaking coaches, there's a lot of slide coaches, there's how to get onto a TEDx. What makes you unique compared to other designers that, the audience and viewers, they come to work with you?
Yeah, thank you. So I've got the 20 years of sales training experience. So not just in making your slides look nice, but I bring that experience of knowing how to tell that story and how to, as we've been saying, look at your outcomes at the end and go backwards and design a deck that tells that journey and that success. A lot of designers won't touch your content. They will say your content is up to you. And I've seen some decks where, and I've said to fellow designers, how do you not touch the content? Because for me, I can't make a good looking slide for you if the content is overloaded. And there's obviously an agreement process that happens that if I start to word diet and cut back content, it's obviously with the client's approval in the end. But these are my recommendations if I'm making bigger content changes. But that's what I bring to the table differently is that clarity of messaging besides just the visuals, is to be able to say, looks great, but are you hitting your landing because it's still so much information.
Yeah. Fascinating. The next question I have for you is because obviously I've shared some pain points and frustrations. Sometimes a speech will take me hours and I don't know if the deck is good or all of this. So tell how much time savings, results more efficient, and the cost to the client should they decide to sign up with you.
Yeah, so I would say it's clearly a time saver, right? Since this is my expertise and it's not many people's, I'm definitely saving you time. I worked with a client once who she said, I'm going to try to save money and do it myself. And she said she spent 20 hours doing it. And
Yeah.
she was a repeat client. And I said, let me help you. And what took her 20 hours took me 2 or 3 hours. And recently did last Thanksgiving for a keynote speaker. She had 5 days to present, which means I had only 3 days to design because I want to give her the fourth day to practice. And I worked over the weekend, but within 10 hours, I was able to give her a slide that she had very loose requirements, which was great for me as a designer, but she said, make it wow, make it impactful. It's about AI, and I want it to be bold and amazing. And like I said, in a little over 10 hours, I produced a document for her so she can get up there and speak with confidence, and she felt great about it. Pricing starts at 125 a slide, so I charge per slide. That's why it's more transparent and there's no tracking of hours and you know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah. And then you mentioned AI, and how are you positioning yourself? How are you thinking about AI? Obviously, AI doesn't have the creative or design skills, but how are you using AI tools to either enhance your business or save your clients money, time, save yourself time as well?
So I don't use it to design decks. I know there's a big discussion out there about how AI is going to replace a lot of positions, including the design industry. AI is a good tool if you're making a small deck and you don't have a lot of specifications and it's mostly internal and it solves a lot of needs for a lot of people. I think once you start getting to those complicated messagings and the company overviews and the sales decks and your slides are 100 slides, AI doesn't yet understand the nuances of human interaction to understand how to engage audiences and decisions that need to be made and changes that need to be made and really the right visuals that bring forward that connection. So I think there's always going to be a space for designers, no matter how advanced technology gets. I always used to compare it to like when the internet came out, we said all call centers are going to be eliminated. And yes, they've been downsized, but people still want that human connection to make those decisions and that problem solving. I'm sorry, what was your other part of the question? Sorry.
Oh,
It was AI.
so no, it's interesting. I'm just curious to see how other entrepreneurs and business owners are using AI. No
Oh,
discussion is, amiss
yeah.
without mentioning AI.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Sometimes with my word cluttering, I'll throw it into AI and be like, I've been working on this for a couple minutes. Just how do you say this shorter and better? And then I'll go back and edit it sometimes. But that's how I use it briefly, but I don't use it for design.
Mm, excellent. And how can people connect with you and follow you, reach out to you if they wanted to see what you're all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is ocdesigns.info. And on there at the top, you'll see a page for word dieting tips. And that's what we talked about. There's a one pager you can download with these tips, how to get started if to help you cut down your own clutter. It shows my portfolio and my client testimonials, and I'm very proud of my work.
One thing from the audience they're asking is what is better these days? Is it Canva, PowerPoint, Keynote? Which is better?
So I specialize in only PowerPoint. And the reason I do that is because it's universal. It's universal. It's the most adaptable in the corporate audiences, most audiences. I don't focus on Google Slides or Keynote. Even though they look like they're the same, there's compatibility issues. And by me being able to specialize in just PowerPoint, I become the expert in it. So there's always new tools, always things happening, but it's the most universal and adaptable.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much for coming on and very concise and very informative podcast. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure.